All right, folks, welcome aboard Ebola and ISIS and Mike Huckabee. That seems to be what everybody's talking about, and we will address all of those stories. We're going to start with ISIS as they move in on Baghdad airport, and as the massacre in Kobani, people are fearing that one could occur. Richard Perle will join us, but first I want us all, Richard Perle included, to take a look at this.
If you compare to what we did in the Balkans, if you compare to what we did in Afghanistan to get rid of the Taliban, or is a fraction of what we did. So it's not an air campaign. It is something slightly more than a PR campaign. But I subscribe to what I would call the Hume, Goldberg, Krauthammer thesis that this is essentially a political operation. It is a way to say we're doing something to take the heat off of him through the midterms, to make it seem as if he is doing what he needs to do as commander-in-chief, when in fact it's essentially a glorified light show at this point.
All right, so one wonders where Mr. Richard Perle, fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, former chairman of the Pentagon's Defense Policy Board, and former Assistant Secretary of Defense, might weigh in or fit in with the Goldberg and Hume and Krauthammer thesis, or whatever he said it was. And joining us now is Richard Perle. Great to talk to you. So what's your take? Because we're sitting here now with ISIS 8 miles from the runway of Baghdad International Airport. Kobani is, God forbid, about to fall with a massacre, they say, to ensue. And we're not hardly doing anything when it comes even to the airstrikes.
Well, in fact, we're not doing anything. It's not a glorified light show. It's simply a light show. There's nothing glorified about it. It's a pathetic inaction, which I'm sorry to say has been characteristic of the Obama term. He's only acted when absolutely driven to the wall. And I think that's likely to be the case here, too, but he hasn't figured out that the wall is looming in front of him.
What do you see? I mean, is it preventable? Could ISIS be in control of Baghdad, at least the airport, in the next few weeks?
Yes, it certainly could. It certainly
and
could.
What would that mean?
Well, it would mean, among other things, the collapse of a decade-long enterprise in which many Americans died in order to rescue the country from Saddam Hussein, delivered back into the hands of a different set of fanatics.
The fanatics that George W. Bush predicted would take over if we abandoned Iraq back when he talked about this in 07. And,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's
the idea of a total withdrawal from Iraq, when we were not taking losses, when things were getting stabilized, was simply a campaign promise and 100% political. There was no reason to withdraw that last contingent of Americans who were training, who were managing, who were advising, and who were exerting influence over a government that, once we were gone, managed to alienate practically everyone and make the ground fertile for the rise of this ISIS insurgency.
And Richard, if there's a, God forbid, a massacre in Kobani, are we partially to blame for that?
Well, we will have failed to stop something that could have been stopped, and in that sense, yes, we are partially responsible. Not only are we acting too little and too late, but we're using instruments that can't possibly succeed. Air power alone is not going to stop ISIS. Not in the near term, where ISIS is a military threat, and certainly not in the long term, where ISIS is an ideology that is gaining momentum, and you don't destroy ideologies with air power.
Yeah, one more. In your capacity as, say, your Assistant Secretary of Defense, how concerned are you about something like Ebola, if you're in that position?
Well, we certainly should be concerned about Ebola. It's not basically a Defense Department responsibility.
Right.
And I'm not expert enough to know whether we're taking the appropriate medical standing troops now to Africa.
4,000 flights from coming in from the infected countries.
It's far from clear that sending troops is the right thing to do, and it's far from clear that we have properly organized a quarantine that would diminish the likelihood that Ebola will arrive in the U.S.
All right, Richard Perle, always great to talk to you, sir. Thank you very much.
All the best.
Take care.
Bye.
You too. All right, folks. There you go. It's you know, all the blood and treasure we spilled in Iraq, and look what's happening as we sit by and do just about nothing. All right, folks. We'll come back. The Malzbeg panel will weigh in next. Keep it where it is, right here on Newsmax Television. Steve Malzberg Show.